Hello. I'm trying to track this wee bastard down. Yeah, you might have heard of him before. He's played James Bond. His name's George Clooney, and that is not spelt the same way as the Cluny, C-L-U-N-Y word in the French monastic piezo jokes, but he's ever so difficult to suss out, and the American involvement in the religious fraud, they're ever so ashamed of it. They keep taking people down, and what you've got on Wikipedia for this George Clooney, yeah, is just a few selected entries from his career's work. He's now in the process of making a movie, and now that he's a little bit plump, he is now playing the role of a Roman soldier and a Roman leader as they sweep through the various European nations, yeah, and become the Church of Rome. That film is yet to be made. It's impending and will be released in 2015. Let's have a look at some of his previous output and the biblical floods. He was involved in the breakup of some assassinations in the Ku Klux Klan sector. Right then. And this is a joke about the Odyssey and Homer Simpson and the biblical flood, and how God can be reached to by man, even if you're George Clooney and kind of twisted.
I'm sorry that I turned my back on you. Forgive me. And help us, Lord. For the sake of my family. For Tommy's sake. And for Velmer's and Pete's. Let me see what daughters again.
So I told you about the meeting the sirens, yeah, and all of it is about the mythical trips through the Aegean Sea, the Odyssey that Jason participated in, and the Odysseys and the Argonauts that discovered Naples and all of those European fraud epicenters. This is America now. Okay, and they've got the stripy shirts of the death camps, and all of it is loosely connected to world history, and it's a typical of the films made by the Cohen Brothers, because the Cohen Brothers are cover for the world history of the high priests of Israel, now located in Hollywood, north by northwest. This one may get shut down for copyright, but I'm prepared to take a chance.
Got to go to the Lonesome Valley. Yes, sir.
And keep your eye out as the flood consumes the whole crime scene for the tambourines drifting by and the evangelistic theme that this presents. And please notice, you've just seen the first one, that the tambourine could well be mistaken for a red fez. Oh, and a banjo. or a mandolin, or a man's penis. And some cash with some royal figureheads on it. Okay. Yeah, I could take you back and show you the meetings with the sirens if you want to. But look it up for yourself. I'm going to watch it later on this evening, because it is absolutely amazing what they're prepared. There we go. There we have the scenes that are the same scenes that Noah would have been privy to. Okay, and remember I've told you about Noah and the Google Maps of the Garden of Eden, and the men that are involved with this actor, George Clooney, include Ewen McGregor, and he's involved in the Star Wars movies, he's involved in the drugs movies in Edinburgh, and he's involved more recently in the making about a film about Yemen. Let's have a look for that on the internet. You know all about Yemen now. That's the Garden of Aden. And they've got the gall to laugh about that right up to 2012 or 2013. So look up Ewen McGregor. Scotsman, typical of the Scottish new breed for-profit generation. Okay. The Star Wars hero, in Pilton as a drug addict, and all of it prepared to kill in the city of Edinburgh, where the speculative society comes from. Okay, and what we're looking for here is Ewen McGregor and the what did I just say? There's the there's the sirens, that make themselves sexually available to the Odyssey group. Okay, and Ewen McGregor and oh goodness me, I've forgotten what we were going to look at. So there's the Star Wars laugh, and we've talked about the jocks and the Obi-Wan Kenobi parallels in religion. Okay, and the Yemen. Right then, let's get it. Ewen McGregor and Yemen trailer. Okay, this is the Garden of Eden joke again. Salmon fishing in the Yemen. Every story is my story. Okay, 2012. That's the Yemen, the yeah Beatles music that is openly declared by Noam Chomsky to be a crime scene and a place where genocide occurs, and that's where the BP plant still is, in the Garden of Aden. And the Google monitoring tool on Google Maps, before I exposed it, had the acronym NOAA. NOAA. It's something to do with the American Association, but it is the nickname for Noah, and the biblical flood is part of the jokes. Do you get it? Let me show you that first, and then we'll take you back to the stories about the cathedrals and the the
defined by what you see.
Priories,
Good evening, Trevor McDonald, ITN, Johannesburg.
run by the
Dear
Benedictines.
Dr. Jones, I act on behalf of a client with very substantial funds who has a desire to introduce salmon into the Yemen.
Dear Harriet Chetwood Talbot, if you're a sheikh, wants to pour his money down the drain, might as well buy himself a football club or something.
Yes, Prime Minister. I'm working on it right now. I think I may have come up with something that you'll like. We need a good news story from the Middle East, a big one. Get on with it. New girl band, Middle East talk. Oh, maybe. No.
Can you see how much money gets poured into the trivial cover-ups of the world history's corrupted background? Yeah, totally. The man that we're tracking here, the man in the film about the biblical flood, has now got an Islamic wife. Yeah, and all of it is completely insane. It's the only word I can find for it. If they were just to come out and they were to make films about goodness, instead of covering up the evil of world history, even Sandra Bullock has made films with our man here, and that's about the bringing down of the Twin Towers, and both of them, Clooney and Bullock, have been on rehab as a consequence. Okay, and all of the Blackadder team get into the same psychiatric issues, and God is responsible for that.
Maybe not. Project to introduce salmon fishing to the Yemen.
This thing's a bloody joke. There are 2 billion fishermen in the UK.
2 million out there waving the little rods around. This has just become a priority project.
This is plainly ridiculous. We need to trap 10,000 salmon, get them to the Yemen alive, which would allow your sheikh to point them out of the water to his heart's content. Of course, until the dry season, when they will all die. I'll see myself out. Goodbye.
You think I'm mad? It would be a miracle if it were to happen.
I feel a bit like I've been stuck for years. I'm genetically programmed to return to dull pedestrian life.
Unless you do this with an open heart, I don't think anything will come of it.
We must have faith, Dr. Alfred.
Extremely well.
It's an extraordinary idea.
I wasn't talking about the project.
No, I'm not sure that I was.
Faith, Dr. Alfred?
Yes, all right then, faith.
Oh, yes. See, there's a few more like you in cabinet.
Shall I take you to faking the New Testament and show you the images of the Yemen again? I don't think we can afford the time. So let's get back to the massive Clooney jokes. This one's ever so clever. He's made films about the Roman wall. They've been taken down from his transcript, and the new film that he's making is about him in the Roman uniform. Yeah, they're ever so cautious now. Yeah, and he has still got the courage to keep making them, as you saw in the flood film, in the flesh. He is prepared to get on screen and do the acting, even although they're laughing at the derivatization of God and the worshipping now of all of the human messianic figureheads, and he's doing that with his new wife in the world of Islam. Yeah, and the other movies he makes is about defrauding scams in the casino sector. And we explained in the early videos that the casino residence is the villa for the boss at the Holy Roman feckin' Empire. That is the son and of the boss of the Holy Roman Empire. Can you see the sunset on the other side of town glinting off those windows? The Holy Roman Emperor is Charlemagne in feckin' France. Yeah, where the Peter character that was mentioned in that movie clip, yeah, is the non-existent first pope, yeah, that denied that Jesus ever existed and became the cock that crows 3 times on the French rugby jersey in the old alliance with Scotland. And the saltire is just a joke about the Cluny Abbey and all of its movements into Paisley and the launch of Ian Paisley and the Irish Terror for profit for many, many decades. Yeah, and there is no Jesus Christ on the cross because he never lived. Okay, let's get back to that story because it's much more important, and how it penetrated into Western Europe and eventually into Ireland. So this is where we left off. Yeah, we got to St. Benedict of Anian, which is the onion joke, and the member of the Piso family which launched the Ottoman onion joke. Otto is the man that is the synonym for the onions, and the French marketing of onions when you get on your bike. Okay? St. Benedict of Anian, the second Benedict, developed, that's the Benedictine movement that was launched in the Cluny Abbey, yet the Cluny Priory, the richest institution. We'll come to that in a few minutes. Developed monastic constitutions at the urging of Louis the Pious, the son of the Holy Roman Emperor. Yeah, Charlemagne, to govern all of the Carolingian monasteries. Yeah, that is the Carolingian threat, that is the lizards in the space area. Yeah, and what you've got with George Clooney is the making of movies about space exploration, and he does that with the woman who was on rehab that made the film about bringing down the Twin Towers. Yeah, Sandra Bullock. Okay, he acknowledged that the black monks no longer supported themselves by physical labour, and there's the other Piso family member that we talked about just before my batteries ran out the last time. That's Archie Louse, the Louse member that is Archie Leach in the Fish Called Wanda movie, and the other co-actor for the Clooney character is the man who played the lover in the Fish Called Wanda, Kevin Klein, and Klein is the pronunciation. Yeah, are you beginning to see how closely interlocked their jokes are? Klein is the way that you pronounce the Cluny word in France. It's Klein. In Paisley, which is Paisley, yeah, the game is also given away, and the clouds have gone jet black since I started to talk. Okay, there is no sunset at all now, and it is for them ever so funny, but now they realise the weight of it. They're having to take all of their self-promotional adverts that we are the world's owners and we're really proud of what we've done in the genocides and all of the Hollywood propaganda to steal from the world's people in the wealth divide plot. Okay, so we're back to the monastery in France, just to the north of Avignon and just to the south of Basel, where the Bank of International Settlements is. Yeah, that's just across the border in Switzerland and just across the Maginot Line. Because they're all physical cowards in the profiteering sector. Right then, as perhaps the wealthiest monastic house of the Western world, Cluny Priory hired managers and workers to do the traditional labour of monks. That's indentured labour. In Scotland we used to call it hiring fares, and it went right on, right up to 1914, when we started culling masses of people in World War I. Okay, yesterday was the 200th anniversary of Waterloo, and I've wondered a little bit why the clouds have been hanging over town so much. The 200th anniversary of the biggest frauds that the world has ever known, which has now culminated in the ownership of the issuance of money in every country on the globe by the same criminal families. Okay, the Cluniac monks devoted themselves to almost constant prayer, thus elevating their position into a profession. Despite the monastic ideal, yet this is in the Bible, so you know to be wary of it, of a frugal life, Cluny Abbey commissioned candelabras of solid silver and gold chalices made with precious gems for use at the Abbey masses. And this is the bit about the roasted chickens. We actually covered this ground before. Roasted chickens were a luxury in France then, and that becomes the KFC joke in America. And cheeses were also luxuries at that time, and they were made by the indentured labour, their employees in the monastery, where the monks wore the finest religious habits and silk vestments at Mass. Artefacts exemplifying the wealth of the Cluny Abbey are today on display at the Musée de Cluny in Paris. Okay, so Avignon rivals Rome, and the catwalk along which the people in the fashion sector in their silky gear is able to walk along in Paris. Yeah, that is the Saint Denis Cathedral, and the catwalks are alleged to be made and built on the heads of the martyred saints in France. It's all a massive joke against the worshippers. Cluniac houses in Britain, all but one of the English and Scottish Cluniac houses, which were larger than cells, were known as priories, symbolising their subordination to Cluny. The exception was the priory at Paisley, which was, and there's the picture of Lord Bandside, who's the sectarian violent man, who is Ian Paisley, the cover for the Paisley Priory. Raised to the status of an abbey in 1245, yet that's the Paisley Abbey, answerable only to the Pope. Cluny's influence spread into the British Isles in the 11th century, first at Lewes, yet down where Gavin Hastings missed the kick, and then elsewhere, that's on the Channel coast, where King Harold got it in the eye. Okay? And they get gifted big estates and shrubberies even in peacetime. That's the gist of the Braveheart movie and the negotiations between the elites, and they get their estates in the south of England, in the Norfolk region, and in all of the places that is now for the elites. They still have them. Okay, that is the owners of the world. That is the fraudsters that take the armies to war, and they now lead the UN. I was quite delighted to find that Lord Peter Sutherland has now died. Yeah, he is one of the biggest criminals. He was the boss at the RBS. He's involved in all of that premeditated scandal in 2008, which the Americans call the reset. We call it the banking crash. Yeah, he gets gifted the headship of the UN. Yeah, and he's involved in the picking of all of the corrupted leaders of the UN. He died, according to the Catholic newsletter, last week. Yeah, and then later on this evening I'm going to make a video on the Ponzi schemes and the renewable energy scams of the Montefiores, which is the Duchess of Sutherland's bloodline, and they've got all sorts of hyphenated names to cover their sins. Okay, the head of their order was the abbot at Cluny. Yeah, this is Christianity launched into Louez, still run by the French hub in Cluny. All English and Scottish Cluniacs were bound to cross to France, to Cluny, to consult or be consulted, unless the abbot chose to come to Britain, which he did 5 times in the 13th century and only twice in the 14th. Okay, at Cluny the central activity was writing. I think we've done this bit as well. Sorry for wasting your time. There it is. It's a massive stone built construction. Okay, successively, and there have been 3 of them built and rebuilt. The 3 successive churches are conventionally called Cluny 1, Cluny 2 and Cluny 3. Yeah, like the casino movies that he makes. I forget what they're called. Ocean, 11, 12 and 13. Yeah, the Freemasonic and Piso numbers jokes again. 13 is the launch of a new political movement, and that was the last one they made. Yeah, all about fraud in the casino with Brad Pitt in them. Yeah, Brad Pitt is related to the elite bloodlines for all of human history. I forget how that comes into it, but look on my website, look up Brad Pitt, and you'll see the video on the Bush family, the Madonna family. Yeah, and all of them, even Marilyn Monroe was involved in that bloodline, if that is to be believed. Out of America, very difficult to believe anything you see from the medias, and the trivial interviews that they make are pathetic. The construction of Cluny 2, circa 955 to 981, began after the destructive Hungarian raids of 953. That's the federations coming across vast tracts of land and beginning to hit on homeland security for the Church of Rome, led to the tendency for Burgundian churches to be stone vaulted so the treasures can be kept in them, tunnels for loot. Okay, the final church at Cluny, the monastery constructed what was to remain the largest building in Europe. Have you never heard of Cluny before? You might be a simpleton like me. I only heard of it 2 days ago. It's amazing what you learn when you begin to look between the cracks in the stone vaulted pavements. The monastery constructed what was to remain the largest building of Europe until the 16th century, when the new St. Peter's in Rome was rebuilt, and the St. Peter's structure is the icon that everybody bases the St. Paul's in London on, in White House buildings in New York on. In Washington on. And it's amazing. It's the same template all around the world, and it's the same joke. And it's the same leadership team and the same bloodlines. And it's the same sun god, and he's still just glinting on the corner of the ever so dark clouds that are hanging around town now. The building campaign was financed by the annual census. That's the launch of taxing the poor, established by Ferdinand I of Leon. This is the jokes about Alfonso in Spain and funding the French monastery number 3. Okay, ruler of the United Leon Castile sometime between 1053 and 1065. Can you see why I've gotten hung up on the Christianity timeline in this key period when they cross the Channel and all of the cross-continental frauds are involving all of the elite monarchies all over Europe, all of them at the trough, and they still are. Yeah, except the ones that they've had killed to retain the power base. Every generation they take a few of the people out in familicide, which is called what was it? It's called unlawful killing. Yeah, that's murder in the monarchy. Alfonso VI re-established it in 1077 and confirmed it in 1090. Ferdinand fixed the sum, yeah, this is the cost for the annual census, at 1,000 golden Marcus Aurelii Aurii, an amount which Alfonso VI doubled in 1090. This was the biggest annuity which we no longer have in our corrupted pension sector, because that funds people for life instead of giving them a pump and dump, bang and bust cash sum, yeah, which is now what the corrupted financial services have done in the last year. That's 2014. They took out the capacity to have an annuity that will keep you going until you die. Okay, it's now a wing and a prayer, like the false religion concept that the order ever received from king or layman. That's the biggest annuity, and it was never surpassed. Henry I of England's annual grant from 1131 of 100 marks of silver, not gold, seemed little by comparison. The Alphonsine census is enabled Abbot Hugh, which is in the Rab C. Nesbitt joke, the Shug character from posh England, yeah, who died in 1109, to undertake construction of the huge Third Abbey Church. When payments in Aurii later lapsed, the Cluniac order suffered a financial crisis that crippled them during the abbacies, the Abba joke again, part of the Paisley family joke, of Pons of Melguel. We've talked about the Ponce, yeah, of the El Cid name, the Ponce of Roderick de Bivar, yeah, and Peter the Venerable, 1122 to 1156. The Spanish wealth donated to Cluny publicised the rise of the Spanish Christians. That's fraud, by the way. The same joke, the same crimes, the same iconic Messiah who never lived, and drew central Spain for the first time into the larger European orbit. Okay, that's the third French monarchy, yeah. At Cluny, the Cluny Library was one of the richest and most important in France and Europe. It was a storehouse of numerous, very valuable manuscripts during the religious conflicts of 1562. Yeah, those manuscripts are not really important. They're the fraud of the Pisos. Yeah, and when we get to the religious conflicts, yeah, that's the fighting amongst themselves, the 30 Years' War, and I horribly suspect the 100 Years' War as well. The Huguenots sacked the abbey, destroying or dispensing many of the manuscripts. Of those that were left, some were burned in 1790, that's 1789 is the French Revolution, by a rioting mob related to the excesses of the French Revolution. Yeah, that's the excesses, yeah, of culling of all of the ordinary revolutionaries in massive conflicts against armies that were paid for by both sides by the Rothschilds. Yeah, and that is the celebration in 1815 when Napoleon was eventually incarcerated, yeah, under the name of a body double called Le Normand. Yeah, he was incarcerated on Elba, very close to the Italian peninsula. Others were stored away in the Cluny town hall. Okay, they are now held. The French government worked to relocate the treasures from Cluny. They are now held by the Bibliothèque, which is Library Nationale de France at Paris. The British Museum holds some 60 or so charters originating from Cluny, and I took you through this afternoon the priories that still exist and those where those charters were given. All in the slaving cities, all in the Bristolian region, all in the Forest of Dean region, all where the Freemasons and the religious fraud peaks. Yeah, it's amazing how many Bristolian accents there are in the Jehovah's place of worship. Yet none of them see, or none of them are prepared to acknowledge the truth about what they are doing to the world, and to divide it, and to divide all of the Christian denominations. The Jehovah's are now in massive lawsuits against the Church of Rome for persecution in Italy in peacetime, yeah, and the genocides are totally ignored in world history. Right then, Cluny's influence, and we're down to the 10th and 11th centuries. The Cluniac network extended its reforming influence far, free of lay and Episcopalian interference, responsible only to the corrupted papacy, yeah, which is usually led by piouses and people with the word Piso in their name, or by the Benedictine figureheads like the Clunyites, which was in a state of weakness and disorder with rival popes supported by competing nobles. Cluniac spirit was felt revitalising the Norman church, reorganising the Royal French monastery at Fleury, and inspiring St Dunstan. We lived in Dunstan Hill in Tring, right in the epicentre of the Rothschild crime scene, and all of the people that I know in that county, even the ones that were in our birthing chamber at RAF Halton, are financial criminals. Yeah, yeah, or their husbands are financial criminals, or their sisters are interlocked in the spoke and wheel model with Princess Anne. That's the Pritchards of Tring. Yeah, there are no official English Cluniac priories until that of Lewes in Sussex, founded by the Anglo-Norman Earl William de Warren. That's the Warrens that are still in the House of Lords, negotiating the corrupted contracts, the fudged inquests, and the trips to Pelindaba of Prime Minister Cameron, yeah, and David Kelly, who did not return, yeah, to politics after Tony Blair had him killed in the lead up to the Iraq War. He also has a body double who has attended our Catholic Church, but I don't know whether or not the real David Kelly is alive or is indeed been murdered by the regime like Foreign Secretary Robin Cook in the same conflict. Okay, the Castle Acre Priory in Norfolk, one of the vast tracts of land gifted to the criminal leaders in Britain if they just play along with this whole Christianity fraud. That's the Wenlock Priory, Shropshire. Right then, and here we've got the map. I've shown you in the earlier video where Cluny is way down south in the Avignon region, which is the Côte d'Azur, incidentally. Yeah, and it's right between the Côte d'Azur and Basel, the Bank of International Settlements, and the massive cathedrals on the Maginot Line. Okay, So we're right across into Lewis, which is there. Yeah, that's Calais. That is the Castle Acre Priory in Norfolk. That is the Friends of the Delupine Abbey, and that is the Wenlock Priory just across the Welsh border in the River Wye region, Forest of Dean regions. Okay, you've got Bristol and Bath down here, and the Roman roads are all through the network and they take you up to Derby at the top of the Icknield Way. Sorry, they take you up to Birmingham at the top of the Icknield Way. And Birmingham, Bristol, Liverpool are the corrupted slaving cities that are still part of the massive cabal of launderers and cheats. And Birmingham Royal Hospital is where Gordon Brown has Malala brought for her surgery before he launches her, in her teenage years, a terror victim of the Islamic Brotherhood, allegedly in, I think it was India or Pakistan. She had her brains blown out, and at the City Hospital in Birmingham they fixed all of that miraculously thanks to Gordon Brown's corrupted support. He was on the picture yesterday of the people that profit from the links to his advisor called Cahill and all of the Irish sectarian violence. Okay, until the reign of Henry VI, all Cluniac houses in England were French, governed by French priors and directly controlled by from Cluny. Henry's act of raising the English priories to independent abbeys was a political gesture, a mark of England nascent national consciousness. Yeah, in other words, he's at the trough and he gets the cash bung, and the whole country has to follow into the corrupted religion, and the buildings and the structures are massive. The early Cluniac establishments had offered refugees from a disordered world, but by the late 11th century, Cluniac piety, yeah, in every one of the jokes, permeated society. This is the period that achieved the final Christianization of the heartland of Europe. So we've got closure on the biggest crime that the world ever committed, yeah, out of Naples and out of the Church of Rome and all across Europe now. Here we've got Pope Calixtus II was elected at the papal election 111, yeah, full of Freemasonic numbers, 111 9 at Cluny. Okay, so we've got a pope in the fraud epicentre, yeah, right next to the Maginot Line, right down there near Lyon, right down there near the Côte d'Azur. Cluny spread the custom of veneration of the king as patron and support of the church, and in turn the conduct of 11th century kings and their spiritual outlook appeared to undergo a change. In England, Edward the Confessor was later canonised. In Germany, the penetration of the Cluniac ideals was effected in concert with Henry III of the Salian dynasty, who had married a daughter of the Duke of Aquitaine. Yet it's the huge power brokers all across Europe that run the network, and that's why Arianna Huffington's name means spider. Arianna. Yeah, it is the joke about the globalized web of fraud and corporatization that means that no country has freedom anymore. The new pious outlook of lay readers, yeah, pious again, enabled the enforcement of the truce of God movement to curb aristocratic violence. Yeah, look at the videos I've made on the thousands of campaigns of violence through Christian history. It is tragic. Cluny's highly centralised hierarchy was a training ground for Catholic prelates. 4 monks of Cluny became popes: Gregory VII, Urban II, Pascal II, and Urban V. An orderly succession of able and educated abbots, drawn from the highest aristocratic circles, led Cluny, and the first 6 abbots of Cluny were all canonised. Yet that's sainted. Yeah, so do you see it? If you've got the power to rise up through the ranks of the church, yeah, and you've got the power to kill and suppress and to debate things effectively to keep the elites funded, yeah, then you can become a saint as well, including the saints Berno of Cluny, the first abbot, Odo of Cluny, that is likely to be French Bishop Odo, yeah, who went to England and is the Frodo in the Lord of the Rings joke. The second abbot died 942, Aymer of Cluny. The third abbot, yeah, so that's not French Bishop Odo, who was associated with the Bayeux tapestries, I don't think, because he went into England after the conquest of England and the battle at Hastings. Yeah, Majolus of Cluny, the 4th abbot, Hugh of Cluny, the 6th abbot, died 1109, and Odilo, the 5th abbot, died 1049. Odilo continued to reform other monasteries, but as abbot of Cluny, he also exercised tighter control of the order's far-flung priorities, and starting from the 12th century, Cluny had serious financial problems, mainly because of the cost of the building the 3rd abbey. Yeah, so they're in a debt pool now, because everything that they do in the lead up to the new activities is bigger and more expensive, like the Olympics, like the Paralympics games, and like the football World Cups. Everything is so ambitious that the whole world is in that Rothschild debt pool. Okay, although the monks, which never numbered more than 60, lived in relative luxury during this period, the political and religious wars of the 16th century, okay, that's the wars that we're talking about amongst the Christians themselves, further weakened the abbey's status in Christendom. For instance, with the Concordat of Bologna in 1516, overseen by Antoine Duprat, Francis I, the King of France, gained the power to appoint the abbot of Cluny from Pope Leo X. Okay, and what we've got down here is French Revolution. Its extensive library and archives were burnt in 1793, and the church was given up to plundering, yet by the revolutionaries, who are led by the Rothschilds and are joined by people who are prepared to fight Napoleon, who when they return are executed in Britain for defending our elites and the French elites against the Napoleonic menace. Isn't that a nice way to do things? The abbey's estate was sold in 1798 for 2,140,000 francs. That may be believable, but it is probably just one of those horrible Piso codes for something really sinister. Yet, like the number of people that King Arthur was able to kill single-handedly in the massive wars in the Arthurian fake-up. Okay, although it was the largest church in Christendom until the completed of Rome's St. Peter's Basilica in the early 17th century, little remains of the original buildings at Cluny. In total, the surviving parts amount to about 10% of the original floor space of Cluny III. Yeah, right then, I think that will be about the end of it, and I think I'm going to stop there now. So have you seen the magnitude of how it works, and how the whole of the massive network of of monasteries and priories has been set up. Yeah, we talked about that this afternoon, and we've now talked about how Hollywood just take the piss. Some of the George Clooney movies yeah, were made in the province where Aquila is. That is, The American was the title of that film. Yeah, I'm going to watch some of them, but it's ever so difficult, because now that they understand that researchers are onto who the authors are of the, you know, the actual output from what occurred in Iraq. That's the Shipman author. Yeah, that's the launch of the Shipman terror threat in the hospital sector. Yeah, and what you've got with David Kelly is the killing of a man that just wanted to get his pension, and he was obligated to tell the world about the nuclear trading scandals, but Tony Blair would not allow him to do that, so they had him killed in the woods. And the killing people in the woods is a joke about Jesus' cross. Yeah, we keep telling you that one. Okay, and all of it is a total. We're not allowed to smack our babies in this country, and in America they're obligated to tell the truth about their politicians. But the biggest crime that America ever committed is still occurred in the Watergate building. It is absolutely pathetic. Yeah, and there is no law enforcement, and all of it is totally chaotic. And we have scientists now who are totally underfunded, but they've been clever enough over the years to develop nuclear weapons that could take the whole of the human race out in the sequelae to all of this. I'm going to stop on that theme now. Yeah, it is really, really threatening. Please take it seriously, David Cameron and your colleagues in the cabinet. We are too civilised and we are too well educated to render the human race extinct on this beautiful planet that is still a beautiful planet. Please, please, David Cameron,